Hello, and welcome to Gadgettes, a video podcast from Gizmodo where we womansplain the latest in technology. I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Earhart, Deputy Consumer Tech Editor, and joining me this week, as always, is...
Florence Ion, and I'm your consumer tech reporter, here with all the reporting of the news.
And not joining us this week, but getting a shout out from us is Philip Tracy, honorary Gadgettes, for his excellent review of the MacBook Pro 13, which went live on our site today. You can go read that there. Essentially, it has the same body as the past few years of MacBook Pros, including the touch bar. It's just got a new M2, more powerful guts inside. But there's, some contrast there that Phil digs into in his review. But digging into the show today, we're going to talk about Apple some more because Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Senator Ed Markey have all signed a bill that seeks to do something that the EU's already done and try to establish a universal charging standard. So lightning, watch out. After that, we will talk to you about nothing. It's a podcast about nothing. No, we'll talk about the Nothing phone, which Flo is showing on her green screen there, which just had some new news come out recently. And after that, we're going to do a quick Let's Fan segment where we talk about Bandai's latest Digimon watches and also just give me a chance to talk about Digimon in general. Yes. But before we move on, let's go ahead and take a quick break. So starting us off today, we have a new push for a universal charging standard in the United States from progressive senators Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Ed Markey. And they recently sent a letter last Thursday asking the United States Commerce Department to establish a universal charging standard for smartphones, claiming, consumer convenience as well as reduced e-waste as options. This mimics something that was done in the EU recently, which actually passed. So now in the EU, smartphones do have to use USB-C going forward, which is going to hurt Apple the most. None of these things are specifically targeted at Apple, but USB-C has generally become a standard on most devices except for Apple's, which still uses the Lightning connector, which is itself a little old, a little slow, so it could stand to change for consumer convenience regardless. I believe Flo's probably pulling one out.
I was. Apologies. But yes, you see my cute little cinnamon roll protector I have on here?
Yes, I do.
I just wanted to show everybody the ridiculousness. But you have to protect these cables because they're so precious. This is literally the only one I own in this house.
I would show off a USB-C cable, but I don't have one on hand here. They're all plugged into something. I do have a micro USB cable on hand. But yeah, USB-C cable. USB-C is the latest standard in USB. It's smaller than USB-A, which is that weird thing that you never know which side to put it in on. It's faster than USB-A. It's a little chonkier than Lightning, but it is much faster than Lightning, and you're more likely to have it than Lightning, given that Lightning is the Apple standard. So part of the reasoning behind this letter is rather than you having to get a new charger for each device you have, you can just continue to use the one you already have and therefore reduce e-waste and clear up confusion. Now, this letter is not law in any way. It's not even a bill. It is a firmly worded letter, which I think fits Bernie's aesthetic. To the United States, asking them to sort of mimic what the EU has done. But regardless of this being law or not, because the EU has passed it and is such a large region for releases, this is something that Apple will have to think about regardless, because I doubt they're going to release iPhone Europe edition and iPhone United States edition. So yeah, going forward, you might start seeing fewer proprietary chargers on Apple devices. We haven't gotten any official news from this, but we have
Yeah.
seen leaks and teases that USB iPhones are in the works. So, Flo, you are our Android person. I assume this has you chuffed, as they would say in, well, not the EU anymore, sadly, but as they would say across the pond. So, how are you feeling,
Forgot about
Flo?
that. Yes. Well, I'm just holding on. Yes, I do have a pair of AirPods here in my hand. It's funny because I ran into this problem yesterday. The AirPods ran. I was trying to make a TikTok about my Tamagotchi. And I forgot that this has USB, or excuse me, Lightning, not USB-C. So I had to go dig out that cable. And I'm wondering like what's going to happen to the dozens of Apple users who have a lot of Lightning stuff that they have, because the thing is, Apple hardware costs a lot of money and everybody knows this. So when they buy it, I do feel like a lot of people consider it an investment. And Apple has done pretty well to kind of like keep that idea going, right? I mean, they support you on software updates. You can keep a phone around a lot longer than you could in Android land, let's be real. So I do wonder how that's going to make all those thousands and thousands of Apple folks feel, because I bought this Lightning to USB-C cable converter the other day because I accidentally bought a microphone, a lav mic for the wrong connection. I bought it for Lightning instead of USB-C. And this is not a solution because this only works for headphone. This does not work for the microphone situation. It's going to be a little confusing at first. I do appreciate the idea of we all need to be on the same spec. This will make it a lot easier if you forget your cord at home, if you come over to my house, you need to charge your phone, but not for a couple of years because it's going to be a while to get out of that Lightning generation.
Yep. I think for a lot of people, iPhone with USB-C would make their lives way more convenient and easier. As someone who primarily lives on PC, that and only uses Lightning for like my iPhone, although I do use wireless charging now, that makes it a lot easier. But then there are the alternative where people are fully bought into the Apple ecosystem and they might hurt from this a little bit. Overall, in the long run, it would probably be considered a consumer friendly move. But like a couple years back, I bought a Razer Kishi Gen 1 specifically for iPhone, which means it has a Lightning port built into it, solid, you can't change it. So if the next iPhone comes out with USB-C, I can't use that device with it, which isn't so bad because the Razer Kishi Gen 2 reviewed very well for us. Shout out to Andrew Lazuski. So I could just upgrade to that. I
kind of want to get rid of my Gen 1 and go get the Gen 2 side note.
But I just can't use this game controller that I bought for my phone anymore, which is a shame because the internals are perfect. It's just that we'll do a trade. We'll do a Pokemon trade.
I'll give you the Gen 1. I'll go buy the Gen 2. You'll save some money for a couple of years.
What if I want an excuse to get a Gen 2, Flo?
You're right. I'd be removing that from you. I don't want to take that away from you. I'm sorry, Michelle. I take it back. I will not share. I can't.
But the alternative to this would be another leak from Apple that's come out kind of recently is that they might also consider just ditching physical ports altogether bravely, like they did with 3.5 millimeter jack, and just focusing purely on its MagSafe charging system. But then that would also leave CarPlay out in the cold. So what we're likely going to see a USB iPhone at some point in the future, whether it's as a result of this letter, probably not, but the clock is ticking on proprietary charging standards, it seems like, and it's going to be a bit of a painful transition for some, so be aware of that. But in the long run, it should take a few pounds out of your box of cables you have under your bed. I don't know, I have a box of cables under my bed. Do you, Flo?
I do, but I'm saving it as a nest.
Oh.
Who knows? Maybe a bird can use it. I don't know.
How California of you. So moving on, we're going to talk about nothing. And by that, we mean the nothing phone, which a lot of, I'm sorry, I can't avoid that pun whenever it comes up. But yeah, the nothing phone one has had a lot of news come out about it recently. But before that, let's take a quick break.
Well, you might be wondering what the phone is behind me. And actually, that would be Marquez Brownlee's hands holding nothing. Ha ha ha, we're talking about the Nothing Phone 1. That has been generating a lot of buzz in the Android circles, and Michelle, I felt like we should talk about this thing that is nothing, because it has been, in our circles, it's really been hyped up. And so I'm very curious if it starts to get out into the mainstream, what will people think of supposedly this nothing phone, which, by the way, has what you are seeing here are 900 LEDs expertly placed so that they can do fun, dynamic things based on how you program them.
But also informational things, kind of,
Yes.
maybe.
Kind of. Maybe.
But before all that, what is nothing, Flo? I don't know. I've just learned what an Android is. And maybe in the past I've heard of something called a One Plus. And now you're bombarding me with this nothing. Why should I care?
See, it's funny you should say One Plus as I hold up my phone that is currently my daily driver, which is the OnePlus 9, because Nothing's founder, Carl Pei, he's the original co-founder of OnePlus. But the thing about OnePlus, while you might see them now at the stores when you go to the carriers, T-Mobile and Verizon will offer it to you, with a discount, which is always nice. But they've actually been folded into their big brother arm, Oppo, which is a huge brand overseas. So if you're in the Android circles, you've heard about it. For the most part, if you live anywhere like between Oceania and the Asian continent, you are very familiar with these brands, with Oppo and its big leader, which is BBK. That's sort of its parent company, kind of akin to like Samsung and its little darlings underneath. And when that takeover happened, Carl Pei exited OnePlus, and then he went on to start this phone company. And so that's why it is getting a lot of buzz in our bubble. But it's interesting because this design language behind me, it actually, it's quite fun. And I think Nothing is trying very hard to position itself as something a little more fun than what we've been seeing from phones, even though I would argue that phones have actually been getting a lot more interesting in recent years.
I do think
we actually have a
so.
difference of design paradigm between like a Google Pixel and a Samsung.
Part of the reason people are excited for this phone is because it is the follow-up product to the Nothing Buds one, which was Nothing's first product and was a pair of sub $100 noise-canceling earbuds that have a similar fun, transparent design and work really well for their price. So now they're releasing a proper phone, and they were curious how that sort of design aesthetic would carry over. And it seems like they're, like Flo was saying, there's a lot of fun options in the Android space now. You've got foldables, you've got, I think, some with like e-paper-esque displays.
Some Android tablets. Those exist.
Yep. But this is actually a fairly bare bones like phone, it looks like. And it's setting itself apart by carrying over its simplistic aesthetics from before and then introducing a weird new lighting feature. So do you want to talk about the glyph interface lighting, Flo?
Right. Glyph, if that sounds familiar to you, go back to sixth grade history class. Remember when we learned hieroglyphics? At least that was part of the California curriculum to learn about that in sixth grade. So what it does is those 900 LEDs can light up to show notifications, whether you're charging, how much charging you're actually getting done, or whether you're reverse charging, which is when you place something on the backside or you tether it and you're charging like headphones or a smartwatch, maybe on the go. This is something that Samsung's and Google's phones already do. It's nice and handy when you're out and about. The other thing that's interesting, and that, by the way, Marquez Brownlee really liked, was the matching of the ringtones. So there are 10 ringtones that comes configured on this device. And you can choose one of the ringtones, and then the back will light up in tandem very cutely. Kind of like, oh, I don't know, a Vegas light show, let's say, but without the water. It's something fun.
It's probably
it's
good
different.
because it's a phone, but it also helps you like know like, oh, I have the sound off, but I see this ringtone and I know my mom is calling or whatever. It's not
Ignore it.
strictly unique to this device. You could just have the front on an always on display, and then you would also know who's calling you. But this offers a sort of unique look to it, and it's visually kind of retro in a way, which is something that a lot of Nothing calls back to, specifically with its interface, the Nothing launcher, which will also be on this phone.
Yeah, and which you can test out now if you have an Android phone and you really just want something a little different. I'm not using it, but I will say what's interesting about this is that Android has always had the ability to customize notification alerts, including with lights, because back in the olden days, the beginning days of Android, most of the Android phones actually came with a notification light on the front. So they would like blink if you had, some messages that were waiting for you. It would maybe light up green if somebody was calling you, to sort of give you like this silent visual indicator of what was going on. And so it's interesting to see Nothing pick this out as a like, look at this sort of this concept-y thing. It's very cool and fun, but what it really does is it harkens back to something that Android enthusiasts remember fondly. And so even though Carl Pei has talked in interviews, I believe in an interview with The Verge, he mentioned that this phone is very much supposed to compete with the Apple iPhone. It's interesting all of the Android DNA that it has in it, including, I'm not just talking about the OS, but just like some of the little tidbits. It's very Android-y.
Let's actually talk about that a little bit then, Flo, because we've been talking about aesthetics a lot. We've been comparing it to sort of Android's past. But as far as like the meat and potatoes of this phone, there's only so much that we can talk about now. But as you can see, there's only 2 cameras on it behind. The functionality is a lot of stuff that sets it apart visually. But is there anything in this phone that you think is going to move the needle, or is it going to be a kind of niche fashion device?
My professional opinion would be that this is going to be a niche device. The OS has to do something really spectacular to stand apart from the crowd. I was also thinking, while going through some of the leaks of the Nothing phone, I kind of noticed a lot of similarities to the marketing of when the OnePlus first launched. For instance, there's an air of exclusivity because they're doing this auction at DropX, which is related to StockX, which Michelle actually reminded me is where people were getting their GPUs. When we were doing the big GPU fire sale at the beginning of the pandemic, that was not fun at all.
It's basically that, and eBay was the only place to get RTX GPUs for over a year at this point. But finally, GPU prices are dropping. You can look to our colleague Phil Tracy, Honorary Dujet's coverage on that to learn more. It's because crypto is dying.
Yes, but
for now,
Elder Scrolls Online, I need some help there, so please get me my GPU. But in all sincerity, it kind of made it seem, I don't want to say not legit, but it just seemed like, why are you going this route? And now I feel like it is because it is supposed to exist in this vein of like, this is a cool stylistic thing that you can add to your life.
So we're talking about StockX as a place where you get GPUs, but it started off as a place for sneaker culture and for reselling, the sneakers and the Supreme gear, which is sold in a similar way through like small exclusive drops, to people who weren't able to wait in line for hours. And, tech has been moving that way the past few years over the course of the pandemic, sort of accidentally. But now we see with the Nothing phone, at least with this initial offering, I'm sure you'll be able to buy it in other less auctiony ways in the future. But we see tech moving that way kind of on purpose now.
Yeah. And there is a caveat for the US folks watching us right now, which is that on its page, on the auction page, it explicitly says that, quote, Nothing Phone 1 is not fully supported in North America. And PC Mag actually fully confirmed that Phone 1 will be a global launch, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work as you might expect it to in all markets. So they're going to be focusing on UK and Europe at launch, where they already have strong partnerships with the local carriers. And you already know the US is a mess when it comes to carrier. They rule carriers rule everything around me here in the US. Just remember that. Which is a bummer, because usually that stands for cookies rule everything around me. And carriers aren't as delicious.
I have never heard of this acronym before, Flo.
Apologies. I'm thinking of food. It's my lunchtime. Regardless, I think part of the reason they put this disclaimer was because they don't have the full carrier relationships finalized yet. That's my thinking. So I'll be curious to see how they ride this wave of like supply chain shortages, the fact that like we are in a global recession right now. Whatever the cause of it is still up to debate, but everything's going up in price. So I don't know how smartphone sales and putting out a new brand is going to land in this economy. I'm just going to say it.
We'll see. It's win-win for them, because either you get nothing, the phone, or you get
nothing. You lose.
Either way, you get nothing. Let's move on to our final topic of the day, which is Digimon. See you after the break. Flo, I know you're a big fan of Tamagotchi. What do you think about its brother product, Digimon? Because Bandai has come out and it's mentioned that we've been talking about smartwatches on this show lately, but it's coming out with its own smartwatch, which is an exercise watch for kids that puts a Digimon on their wrist. Flo, I know you have your thoughts about Digimon. I have my thoughts as well, but as the Tamagotchi expert, I cede to you first.
Okay, so I was very excited when you started here because you said you knew about Digimon the anime. So I still need to learn some things from you, but I am personally excited for this particular situation because the Bandai Namco's Vital Hero watch may change the way that they do Tamagotchi down the line. They're both, again, sibling brands. And so it'd be really fun to have. I mean, it's basically, to bring up another franchise, it's basically Pokemon Go on a kid's wrist.
So what this watch does is it takes Digimon, which initially started, we've mentioned on this show before, as a problematic though it may be, this was 90s marketing culture. It was intended as Tamagotchi for boys, and then it quickly became like a Pokemon competitor because they happened to be coming out at the same time and people were naturally going to compare them. But they've really diverged over the past few years where Pokemon has these really excellent games and Digimon has games that exist and are not always the best in the world. Although I will say Digimon Cyber Sleuth is great, but Digimon still maintains somewhat of a fan base through its anime. But it seems like now Bandai is really trying to get into the sort of Pokemon Go market by gamifying exercise specifically for kids, and it's leaning into Digimon for that because you can battle Digimon together, and what a better way to gamify exercise than to make it so that, hey kids, if you want to digivolve your Agumon, you got to do your sit-ups or your running or whatever.
Pokemon Go. That's why I go on those, I go on my stupid mental health walk every day because I have to do the stupid mental health walk to go to the stupid Pokemon gym down the street and do my stupid Pokemon rounds. But I have a lot of Pokemon.
That's good. I did get into Pokemon. I noticed like a year after the a year after the pandemic, which is a kind of aesthetic, I guess. I picked up Pokemon Go again as an excuse to like go outside because I had been holed up in my house for so long. And I was like, oh man, I'm walking around, I'm picking up Charmanders, I'm picking up all these Pokemon that are hard to get in the console games, that I can then transfer into the console games. This is the best. And then I got tired of pulling out my phone all the time to throw a Pokeball or to battle at a gym or do a raid or whatever.
My kid has fallen a couple times because I was not paying attention to her. I was trying to catch a Pokemon. But you know what? It teaches her the world is not safe.
There are devices that make it so that you don't have to pull out your Pokemon Go your Pokemon Go app every time you want to interact with it. But I'm not quite so dedicated that I want to get a Pokeball Plus just for Pokemon Go to carry around with me.
I originally got it for Let's Go, I will say. Because I wanted
Let's
the free
Go
Mew.
is the console sort of remake of Red and Blue and Yellow that connects to Pokemon Go in a lot of fun ways. But I was like, dang, I really wish that I could play Pokemon Go on my Apple Watch that I have now. That doesn't exist. But Digimon is now, its Vital Hero now fills that function in a way. So there's a little LCD screen, full color, that will live on kind of a fashionable looking watch on your kid's wrist or your wrist. I'm not going to tell everyone. And you'll have a little, digital friend there that every time you exercise will get a little more powerful, and you can battle it against your friends or the other kids in the playground and stuff. And I think that's a really neat way to do it. I'm interested in that it's its own static standalone device. That's such a retro approach to me, as opposed to making it an app in that way. But I know it's what Tamagotchi has been doing for years now. And Flo, as I understand, you're pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I think part of the reason, too, that they did this way is because Bandai is, they want parents to buy this for their kids. And so they make these things, they kind of build them as like unconnected. So the Tamagotchi Smart and actually the Tamagotchi Pix and Pix Party, they have like social networks on them, which are they're just recreations of Instagram. Like you snap a picture of your Tama, and then you painstakingly like post a one-line post. It's very hard to input text, but it's supposed to be a fun way to like get kids to live off of the internet. And so I'm really looking forward to also the hacking community. Like, what are they going to figure out with this Digimon bracelets? Because I have been watching them hack the other Digimon stuff. So I would love to see this element of step counting and some interaction with the gameplay come to a future Tamagotchi. The Tamagotchi Smart is what we have now, but you don't have to wear that on your wrist. You could just wear it around your neck or put it in your purse, and it'll still like count your steps. And it doesn't do anything. It's just for like bragging rights. You know,
I think
you could dance with the Tamagotchi, but
that I was an only child, so I never got this experience. But I've heard stories, growing up of people, they're playing their Super Nintendo or whatever, and their sibling comes in and wants to be player 2, so they toss them a controller that's not connected, so they can feel like they're playing the game without actually, interrupting your process. And I feel like this tech has a similar appeal for very young children, in that they can feel like they're on their phone, like mommy or daddy. They can feel like they have a fun Apple Watch, but they're not being exposed to the horrors of the internet. And instead, they're being exposed to the horrors of exercise. Only one of those horrors is actually good for you, I think.
Just
so
you gotta gamify it. Otherwise, what's the point? Exercise is why. I mean, this is why Apple Fitness, Peloton, Strava, like all these very popular fitness apps and fitness suites, part of the process of that, or part of the appeal of them, is that there's a social element. There's a gamifying that you do, like how many rides can I get in a week or whatever. But I like this part because this appeals more to my nerd. Okay, because
So in a way,
yeah.
in a way, you're keeping the kid safe and offline, and in another way, you're getting them while they're young. But
Exactly.
in another way, you're appealing to the fun nerds like me, who is probably going to go home and watch Digimon Last Kizuna Evolution I this weekend, because I've heard it's really good and I haven't watched it yet, but this segment has reminded me to watch it.
Are you, Michelle, before we end this little bit, are you planning on getting one of these? I would love for us to, like,
I have never had a proper digital pet, but I honestly think that this watch looks so cool that I might double wrist it and wear my Apple Watch on my left wrist and the Digimon on the right wrist.
I've done that with the Tamagotchi. Smart.
I do actually. Bracelets are some of my favorite form of jewelry, so I'm not opposed to getting another wrist accessory. So
It's
Flo,
fun. It can be fun.
I'll
and
join
futuristic to,
you
like,
down the rabbit hole. I just can't have it yelling at me randomly every hour or so. I don't have
probably
the
mute
time
it.
to dedicate to it. Okay. What if it dies?
I'll try and find some hacks for you the way that I have with the Tamagotchi to figure out, because again, the community around this is very interesting, and I want to use you as an excuse to dive into it without me going too deep in the rabbit hole. So
I'll
you're
just
gonna be
tell
my
my
ladder.
cat. I'll tell my cat that if I forget to feed her, so I can feed my Digimon instead, that it's
No,
Flo's
put the
fault.
Digimon on her. Just put her on her neck. So when she walks,
Get her
when
to
she's,
do the
doing her
exercise for
rounds.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
We're already
I
coming up
made
with our own
Mona
hacks.
also do that for me. Step counting.
We should do a whole segment about all the ways to hack your child to play your video games for you. Maybe we'll go ahead and do that in a future episode, but for now, it's unfortunately time for us. We will see you in next week's episode of Gadgettes. But before we leave, we want to send our thanks, as always, to our video editor, Artem Golub, for making us look and sound nice, and to our cover art editor, Vicky, Leta, for designing all of our wonderful Gadgettes aesthetics. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns for us, you can reach out to gadgets@gizmodo.com. And our social media handles should be on the screen right now. You can find me on @ShellEarhart at twitter.com. And Flo, where can people find you?
At that flow wherever social media is sold.
It is sold. We are sold. But next time, we will see you on next Thursday. Until then, have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.